Like most years, 1937 was filled with events that would shape the future, often in profound and unexpected ways. For example, an affair of the heart altered the lineage of the British Empire. When King Edward VIII gave up his crown to marry a divorced American woman, Mrs. Wallace Warfield Simpson, and Edward's younger brother, Prince Albert of York, Bertie to his family, became King George VI in 1937. As a result of Edward VIII's abdication, George VI's elder daughter, Princess Elizabeth, succeeded him to become Queen Elizabeth II, who reigns yet today. German Chancellor Adolf Hitler nullified the Treaty of Versailles, while Japan began an all-out campaign to conquer China, and the march toward World War II gained momentum. At the same time, in central Germany, a little-known concentration camp named Ettensburg, originally intended for professional criminals, was opened. Its name was changed shortly thereafter to Buchenwald. On April 26, German bombers ravaged the city of Guernica, as the Nazis and the Soviet Union tested their war-making machines in the Spanish Civil War. On May 6th, the German Zeppelin Hindenburg exploded under mysterious circumstances in Lakehurst, New Jersey. Famous American aviator Amelia Earhart flew through a hole in time, disappearing forever from the planet, but securing a permanent place in aviation history. The United States Supreme Court declared the Wagner Labor Act unconstitutional. Unemployment insurance legislation was enacted nationwide, and Congress passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, authorizing a minimum wage and a maximum work week, which we all benefit from. Dow Chemicals introduced polystyrene in the United States, to those who wonder how old plastic in this country has been. The Golden Gate Bridge was opened that year. The primary news and entertainment medium for Depression-era Americans was radio, with such programs as Major Bowes and his original Amateur Hour, Amos and Andy, Easy Aces, Jack Benny, Fred Allen, and Fibber McGee and Molly entertaining the entire family, while others like Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy, the Lone Ranger, Little Orphan Annie, and Let's Pretend mesmerized the kids, as with a new Christmas program, The Cinnamon Bear, which premiered in 1937. In 1937, American movies were better than ever, with Captains Courageous, The Marx Brothers, The Day of the Races, The Good Earth, The Hurricane, in Old Chicago, Lost Horizon, which we viewed again last week, The Life of Emile Zola, The Prisoner of Zenda, A Star is Born, Stage Jolt, Copper, and the Laurel and Hardy hit Way Out West. These were among the movies vying for box office dominance, along with the first full-length animated feature, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They were competing against the dark Depression-centered Dead End, Humphrey Bogart movie, in an excellent year for movie lovers who could afford the tickets. While there was industrial ferment brewing in the land, the effects of the Depression lingered, reasserting themselves when President Roosevelt miscalculated the extent of the recovery and reduced government stimulation to cause the recession of 1937, also known as the Roosevelt Recession. So it was that Chicago was still a city staggering back to its economic feet after repeated shockwaves in the national economy. Yet due to the federal government's persistent efforts to jumpstart the economy, including the injection of work projects into it, like the WPA, people were beginning to feel that hope was again something that Americans might embrace further. Some industries, like steel, which had continued to operate throughout the Depression, albeit at reduced intensity, were already steaming ahead toward record growth, but the same could not be said for the rank-and-file workers on whose labor the industry depended. Major steel companies continued to treat their workers much as feudal lords had treated their serfs, as property to be used and dispensed with according to the whims of the lords in charge. After a barren 4 decades in which union membership had been automatically equated with anarchism and communism by the vast majority of agriculturally oriented Americans, people were beginning to realize that the wheels of industry were lubricated by the sweat and blood of a miserably maltreated workforce. In Michigan, the Great General Motors strike took 45,000 people out of work, signaling the beginning of serious unionization efforts in the United States. American workers began joining unions in larger numbers than ever before in a movement that crested and broke here on Chicago's southeast side. Thus it was that on May 31st, 1937, Memorial Day, Chicago steelworkers tried to do something truly revolutionary, persuade the owners to improve working conditions, shorten work days and weeks, pay a decent wage, and provide some long-term job security. Like most revolutions, it wasn't easy and it wasn't bloodless. After 2 stinging skirmishes earlier in the week, a major encounter took place between the forces of industrial management on one side and labor on the other. It happened right over there, across Avenue O, in those fields between 114th and 117th Street, where 1,000 unarmed men, women, and children had a pumped-up police force of 500-plus armed men who were defending Republic Steel. It was an uneven contest, and it ended in death for 10 marchers and injuries, some severe, for more than 100 others. The workers didn't win at Republic Steel that day, and adding insult to injury, the coroner's jury in Chicago found in favor of the police, ruling justifiable homicide in all the counts. However, the Senate committee investigating the affair stated that the police were in grave error, at the very least, in their performance during those events. But it took World War II to bring the Union to Republic Steel, when the threat of denying war contracts to that corporation finally opened the doors to the Union in 1942. This building, now known as the Zone, was a Union hall for Local 1032, the Union local that works at Republic Steel. Mounted on the base of the flagpole out there is the full plate that contains the names of the 10 who were killed in the 1937 Memorial Day Massacre at Republic Steel Company's South Chicago plant, which was right over here on the east side. And on the corner near the fire station is a newly refurbished and dedicated monument to the workers who were killed that day. If you count the steel reeds on the monument and the tubes, there are 10. They represent those workers who were killed over there in those fields. And that is what happened, and that's why we're here today to talk about it. It was just a mess. Imagine 1,500 people out there, about 500 of them armed and ready to rock and roll, and 1,000 people coming at them. They were already trying to repel, and it was a mess. We've had people who were alive, who were in that event that day when we did some production related to it, recounting the event. It was not good. But we have a videotape, I think, Joanne, don't we, at the museum? Recounting that. It's kind of like the Nixon tapes, the critical moment of ignition is cut out somehow. Changing batteries, changing film, or cut. So all you know is you see a bunch of people peacefully walking toward the police line, and the next thing you see is an explosive running away from them. It's short and it's ugly. It's worth seeing. Yes, ma'am.
So were they trying to enter the plant, or were they just demonstrating outside?
They were there to demonstrate. The police believed they were there to take over the plant. That's what they were told. So, you know, you figure it out. You had 1,500 people on the field. There were some jerks on both sides, undoubtedly. There were good police who were compassionate. There were police who were brutal. And the brutal ones killed 10 people. And some of them they beat to death.
They had already been on strike for a while?
They were not on strike as such. What they were trying to do was form a union. They were trying to get the
So
right
the Republic was still
organized.
But they
had locked down. They had locked employees in that they wouldn't let out. So some of the people were even trying to talk to their relatives who were in the plant, just to communicate with them.
And this was after the Rouge River plant strike in Michigan,
Yeah,
right?
the Big Steel had already organized.
Right.
Had been organized.
And the United Auto Workers had already organized the auto industry.
This was Little Steel, and Little Steel was fighting it right to the to the last.
But they had this history of lockdowns and sit-down strikes and workers taking over plants, so they were trying to prevent them.
Yeah, that was the logic of it. But they were trying to do more than that. I think what happened, my feeling was that what happened is that there were people on each side who were probably anxious to have some kind of an ignition to have things explode.
But the city government provided police as opposed to security guards provided by Republic Steel.
The police were provided by the city, although the mayor had said it was perfectly all right for the people to march. Mayor Kelly had said, yeah, fine, they can march. The police didn't get the word again. So they were really...
But
what we've been able to read from the records is that the police were really getting, it was like a football team going in, getting, just before the game, getting really pumped up for it. And so they were more than edgy when the whole thing started. That was part of the problem. But yeah, there had been organization already, but here they were just trying to get the right to it. That's all I have to.
Thank you very much.